in those 3 states, that law obviously needs to be changed. But wait, before you go in, I'm not.
Cool.
The
Let's
entirety of the United States does not have that law. Those specifically, those 3 states.
Then, if we can agree on that, let's fight for that.
Sure, but the thing is, it's like,
are you a feminist? Because we want to work against those oppressive regimes.
I think that all laws should be equal between men and women, and all social should be like social parts of our society should be equal to men and women.
And you're
agree about that. Yes,
inequality doesn't posit inequality universally. It just posits that some equality has or is existing. And you agree with that.
But wait. Yes. But what I'm saying is, like, a lot of modern day feminists are pretending as though like the patriarchy is just as bad as it was 70 years ago. And it's like not
I don't think anyone's pretending it's just as bad.
No, we are saying that we are living in a patriarchy. How are we not living in a patriarchy?
You see, what you're not living in it. I named 3 states. There's 50 states, right? So the other 47 states
right, but
don't have that law.
Can you tell me how many presidents have we had?
They've all been men. Like, I understand where you're going with that.
Great. What is the percentage of Congress that is men?
But there's a lot more women now in Congress than there were.
What is the percentage of Congress that is men?
So what do you suggest, right? Do you suggest that we just...
Can you answer my question?
But let's get to the concluding point of where you're getting to. Obviously,
I would like to finish. I would just like to make my point. And then you can make yours.
There's a vast majority more men in Congress. Okay.
Comes to our system of government.
Look at any of the advancements that have been made.
No, let me tell you why I'm pointing. Let me tell you why I'm pointing at these metrics. Because when it comes to our system of governance, would you agree that power and wealth is what controls the levers?
It's a metric.
Would you agree that those are the 2 biggest metrics?
Those are 2 substantial metrics.
Are they the biggest? If not, what is bigger?
Let's get to your point. We're one nation under God.
Answer my question. Are those the 2 biggest metrics when it comes to the levers of our government?
I would say religion is also a major metric, but just get to your point.
Great. Oh, wait. Let's talk about religious leadership. So
I'm sorry. Religious leadership. Sure.
Yeah, one of the largest faiths in America is Catholicism, and the
Christianity.
And the Southern Baptist. I mean, Christianity's broken up into sects. One of the largest sects of those is
but non-denominational Christians are like make up. Anyway, what's your point? Like,
so I mean, who is the leadership of the Catholic Church?
I wanted to know what Kenzie was getting to.
The point is if most of the power is still held by men, we're a patriarchy, point blank, period.
Correct. So if you look at who has a majority of the wealth, it is men. If you look at who has a majority of power, it is men.
So what do you suggest? Strip men down of power and replace them with women?
No, you can recognize that currently men hold the power, right? And we can discuss solutions.
No, because there's women CEOs, there's women founders.
A patriarchy is a system that in which men hold the vast majority of power.
And it's also a system that inherently only benefits men, but we're not living in a society that only benefits men.
We don't have to define patriarchy.
That's not true. A patriarchy is definitionally a system where men hold the primary and majority of power. That's what a patriarchy is.
And so that's why I'm wondering how you
So you want to strip men down of positions of power.
No, I'm trying to go back. You said we don't live in a patriarchy, and I'm establishing that we do.
Okay, what's your end goal here? What's your point?
Do you agree? Do you agree?
I don't agree we live in a tyrannical patriarchy.
Do you agree we're living in a patriarchy?
I don't agree we're living if the society was so much more advantageous for men.
No one is adding tyrannical. The question is, do we live in a patriarchy?
If that's the way you want to look at it, right? Then
what is your view?
Let's look at the definition of patriarchy. I'm going to read it here since we love to go off definitions. A system of society
I'm not a pedant.
A system of society or government in which the father or eldest male is the head of the family and descent is traced through the male line. Here it goes to the government. A system of society or government in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it. But women are not excluded from our government.
They are largely excluded from it.
But it's not. They're not
I
excluded.
just
They can be in
established
our
how
No,
they
no,
mail.
were.
They
but
can,
the
but they
I
can get
just
into our
established how
stuff.
they were. If you
read
want
the
to go into
definition. They are
historic
largely
numbers,
excluded from it.
yes, if you want to go into historic numbers, because when I gave you the numbers of Congress, I gave you the 75% that is current today. If you want to talk about historic numbers, 96% of Congress has been men.
Yeah, but also, I mean, you can recognize they are largely.
But let's look at the definition of excluded: to deny access to, and we're not excluding women from positions of power, so it's not excluding women.
But you know,
Excluding
they
is
are
denying the access
they are
to.
largely excluded.
They're not though, because they're not denied positions of power. So
if
that's
you
not.
aren't,
That's just
wait, 1 second.
inherently not true.
If you aren't voted in, are you denied access to that point of power?
They're not denied in. We have women.
Wait.
Congress.
If you are not voted in, are you denied access to the presidency?
But there are women that are voted in.
No.
To Congress.
I know, but we're talking largely. We're talking.
Well, perhaps the male. Well, perhaps the man was a better decision. The country made the decision that they wanted the man over the woman.
Still recognize what happened.
But she's not excluded from that position.
If you aren't
women
voted
are
in,
excluded.
No, they're not.
Right corner. If you are not voted in, are you excluded from that office?
Excluding would be not even being allowed to run. That's the thing. They're allowed to run. If they don't win, that's because they lost.
Occupational segregation.
If you're excluded, you're not even given the ability to run.
You are reaching so hard
I'm not reaching,
because
I'm going
you
off the
really
definition.
don't want to prove. Yeah, no, you really are.
I am. Wait, you are denied access to that privilege. In order to access the privilege,
you have to win, though.
1 second. You're just making shit up. So, I mean, if you aren't voted in, you are denied access to the privilege of being in office.
If you're excluded, you're denying the ability or access or bar someone from a place, group, or privilege. But they're not denied because they're given the ability and the opportunity to run.
Do I have access to the privilege of being president if I am not voted in?
Repeat the question.
Do I have access to the presidency if I am not voted in?
You're not, no, because you're not the president. But the thing is, if you weren't allowed to run,
so I do not. I don't
have
let me access to that privilege. So if someone stops me from having access by not voting me in, let's say, right?
No, the privilege is not being able to run. Come on, bro.
Do we have to do this shit?
Your only arguments you have are literally stretching to try and make definitions fit your narrative. If we are not in a patriarchy, what are we?
We're not in a patriarchy. We're in a society that it's equal to men and women. You're not denied the right to run for president. If you were denied the right to run,
it's the right to
have
to have the privilege.
No, you have to win.
Not the right.
If people don't elect you, it's not because we live in a patriarchy. It's because you weren't the better candidate. Period.
It is because we live in a patriarchy.
You denied the privilege. If they aren't denied the privilege of the presidency, right? Why don't they have the privilege? Why don't they have the presidency? Because they were denied the privilege of the presidency.
Didn't always have that privilege. Now they do.
It's a different level of barring them, but it still does. Let's talk about the point of power. 1 second. Let's talk about the point of power that you yourself brought up. Do women even have the privilege to gain religious power in the Catholic Church?
This has nothing to do with the patriarchy inside of the United States, the supposed patriarchy.
It was a measurement that you brought up. Yeah, this is a qualifier of your own.
You brought up that measurement. No. So let's talk about that measurement of power.
Do you want a Bible verse?
1 second. Do you?
I mean, if we're going to talk about like sexism and religion, I can bring up Islam and why women have to dress head to toe.
I'm against that as well.
But like, if we're going to pinpoint sexism and religion, but we're talking about the United States being a patriarchy or not.
Well, yeah, because
let's stick to that.
Yes, there
is sexism in religion. There's sexism in religion. Yes, but we're talking about if there's a patriarchy or not.
Who does that sexism benefit on the in the vast majority of cases? In points of power.
We're talking about if there's a patriarchy in the United States. Yes, there's sexism in religion.
Recognize that a part of
I asked you if power and wealth were the measurements to determine if we lived in a patriarchy, and you said yes, as well as religion. So now we're adding your own qualifier to show you that the levers of our government are controlled by men.
But guys, Kenzie and like Will, dude, like if you are barred from being able to even run or even being able to do anything, then you are in a patriarchy. But women can do all the things that men can do. They're not denied
Does
entry. They're
religion
not
have
denied
power in American society?
to some degree, I guess.
Okay. Would you agree that at least in the manner that that power is wielded, by and large, is a patriarchal power?
There is patriarchy in religion.
Cool. And you would recognize that that is a part of our system of of society.
No, because there's a separation of
society. You
Wow.
believe that
Now you're taking back your own
religion is part of our system.
You're
of
going
society.
up on religion. Where the fundamental question is: is there patriarchy in the United States? And the answer is no, because women aren't excluded or denied entry into anything.
I mean, you brought up a point of power. I don't know.
You just don't like that fact. So now you're pivoting to religion.
I don't know why you brought it up. If like it literally disproves what you're saying, but also economically, right? We clearly see a bias against women, right? In investment, in terms of investment in founders' money, right? And in government, we clearly see evidentiary proof that they are barred by voters.
They're not barred. That's not true. Just because you don't win
if
something,
I'm not voted in, I'm barred from office. Like,
but you didn't win. It's not.
I know.
You must recognize that men have more institutionalized power and wealth, giving them more privileges when running for office.
And there's just blatant sexism. Like, we know this. We know
this country is for the people by the people. If the democracy does not elect you, it's because you are the worst candidate. Period.
That is not true. That is not true.
It is true.
Hillary Clinton won the popular vote and was not elected president.
Yeah, it's not.
The voice of the people was a woman, and a man took the job.
You genuinely believe that the best option for our country for the past, like hundreds of years, right, that we have has been white men? And not
necessarily, but women have only been able to run for president since like the 1920s. So
you believe every single president that has come since then has been the correct
one? When were women allowed to start running for president? Do you know this? I don't know it. Do you know?
I don't know this off the top of my head.
I'll look it up because we have to go.
Because we know. You don't think that? Do you believe that women are better than
men? I think there are some men that are better at leading than women.
Do you think it's like
I'm not trying to. It's not fair to make a blanket statement to are women.
I believe that it's equivalently distributed. I think women and men are like as a whole entire group are pretty much equivalently good at leading.
Not everyone's good at leading. Only a small minority of people.
I didn't claim that.
Right.
So what are you saying? That wasn't my claim. I said that when we look at these two groups, they're pretty equivalent. The gender of you doesn't change your ability to lead. So how do we explain that a vast majority of our governance is men? Well, we have the first part of patriarchy, which is men hold the power, right? And then we have to see women are largely excluded from it. Well,
they're not though. That's where it stops, right there.
You were correct. Wait, can I make a point, Will?
Yeah.
Do you know why abortion was made illegal in the late 1800s? Hello?
I think he's looking it up. I don't know the answer either.
No, I'm asking you. Do you know why abortion? Do you know why abortion was made illegal in the late 1800s, 1867?
No, but I think you do.
Yeah, because during that time, women were starting to gain political power, and the most common abortion patient was a white Protestant married woman. So abortion was made illegal for two reasons: to maternalize women, to go back to the home, and to make more white babies. Now that abortion is being sent back to the States, it is the same playbook.
That's true.
All right, I mean, but we're not living in 1865. We're living in 2022, and you have all the same rights that I have as a man.
You don't.
You did not just listen to anything I said. Like, you are so willfully ignorant.
You're talking about
you're not even like a good debater. Correct. To prove a point, to show you that how women can be excluded from
Women at
political
that time,
systems.
it's
You
over
realize
100
that
years
when there
ago.
are, one
Come
second,
on.
you realize that when it comes to marginalization and barriers, like if we're looking at things that are systemically racist or systemically sexist, that those type of systems don't blatantly say, we are doing this to women or we are doing this to minorities. We don't have
They find ways to
laws
do it.
anymore. Yes, it's not as upfront and in your face.
Yeah,
And
like you
this
can
is
make this
where
argument
you are
about
very
anything.
disconnected.
Yeah.
Well, back
Like
to
you
the
could
very root
literally
of the
make the exact
question.
same
We don't live
argument
in a
about a
patriarchy.
sexist dictatorship.
We
You could be
do.
like, well,
You
all
have
of our
support. You have
bureaucrats are just
presented
chosen
no
by men.
evidence to support your claim.
You're not denied anything that I have. So everything
You
I
do
can do,
not
you're
think
not denied
that.
to do.
Do you know what like systemic sexism is? Do you believe in systemic racism?
Well, show me what you're denied to do in this country that I'm able to do, and I'll admit
I
to
live
you,
in North
yes, I
I'm
live in a
Carolina.
going to.
Women are
I'm
denied in
patriarchy.
trying to
this
make a
country.
point.
Boom.
I don't have bodily autonomy. Boom.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, right. Well, that's what
I
all
mean,
you
no,
feminists
like you
say.
recognize this.
Is that not
But
true?
is abortion illegal in the United States? No.
Some places
You,
in the United States,
Yes,
yes.
it was,
in some states it is
but
absolutely.
not the entire United States. You can't say
But
the
does it
entire
have
That
to be
United
the
States is
entire
that
United
doesn't
patriarchal.
States?
matter. That doesn't
If there's
matter.
one state in the U.S. that gives bodily autonomy, does that mean that every single person in the U.S. isn't living under a place where they don't? Like, this is so dumb.
Is that all you got? Like the bodily autonomy
No,
thing? That's
I
all you
have
I mean,
got?
it's a
more.
great example. We can
You
point
want
to
to talk
literally
about
every single
sexual
governmental thing.
harassment in the workplace?
Happens both ways too.
Oh, really? At what
Statistically, not
percentage
nearly
rate?
at levels.
Women are
But
disproportionately affected by sexual harassment more than men.
sure, and men are murdered at a higher rate than women. Like
I have men.
far more men are homeless than women.
That doesn't. Number one, I
What?
challenge that statistic. Give me, and
No,
that might have to do with veterans. But number two, again, you didn't even dispute. Like you actually proved a point
well,
for me that men are murdered by other men, not by women, and that statistic does not counteract when I say that women are disproportionately affected by sexual harassment in the workplace than men,
there
which
are
makes their ability,
260,000.
one second,
Okay.
which makes their ability to receive promotions, transfers, and higher paying jobs more difficult than their male counterparts.
Okay, you're really pulling at straws.
I am not. You just got fucking nothing. You're a joke.
No, I don't. You're not barred from doing anything that I'm able to do. You just want to say,
I
well,
just
some
I put this in
women are.
context for you
made.
though, because what you're saying is like, here's how I hear it, and how I explain is kind of out there. So just stick with me for a second. If we were in like a sexist dictatorship, right, where it's one dude who is in charge of everything, the argument I hear you making would be like, oh, I mean, there's a whole entire male government. Like, one second,
That.
stop speaking, Kenzie. I'd love to hear what your point is. Right corner, go.
So what? So me?
You go.
My turn?
Right corner. Yeah,
okay. So saying barred from office, meaning you are forbidden or excluded. But being forbidden or excluded means you don't even have the ability to run. In a democracy, if you're not voted, it's because you lost the election, right? You were talking the example of a dictatorship. If a dictator doesn't pick you because that dictator is sexist, then I would agree that that's patriarchal. But we live in a democracy where the people are voting. And if you don't win, that does not mean we're in a patriarchy. Patriarchy, you wouldn't even have the ability to run for president because you're a woman. That would be a patriarchy. But the ability for you to even run, just because you lose doesn't prove a patriarchy. It just proves that you're the worst candidate.
It does not, because there are a lot of factors that come into running. Do you know how AOC got her seat?
Grassroots.
Correct. So her opponent, who was actually, I believe he was a 14-year incumbent and was actually appointed. He didn't even have to run. He was just given the seat by someone else, outspent her 18-1. So when you have like institutionalized as well as like generational power to essentially delegate who you want to have the chair, and then you also have the financial backing to establish it, we can see that more than likely the men will have the privilege of getting the seat
No.
as well as the power. Just because a woman is able to run does not mean that the man does not start 3 laps ahead.
Not if she had more money than him. Like, you can make the argument for classism, but which is what you're doing, but it's not inherently only men that have money. So if she had more money, then she would have had the advantage.
Yes.
Well, yeah, one
when
second.
it comes
I would love to get an explanation here, which is, let's talk about the dictator example for a second. So I want to kind of play with this. If the dictator let you put in an application, let both the man and women put in the application, but he just chose every man by happen chance, or he chose vast majority of men and maybe like 1 or 2 women, would you still think that's a engaged with me a little? And I think it gets kind of the point across pretty clearly.
Yeah, but we don't live in a dictatorship. But if that was the case, which we don't live in a dictatorship, but if their dictator was inherently a sexist, then I would say that yes, that's a patriarchy, because he's going to exclude women because he thinks that men are better than women.
But he's letting them in he's letting them put in an application. If he really was excluding them, he wouldn't let them put in an application. Maybe he just, says they're all the men are better.
But the thing is that he is the only voting power. If the entire country says that you are the worst candidate, that's a democracy saying that we don't believe you're the better candidate.
Yeah, so if the person choosing is sexist,
but there's 370 million people in this country, dude.
You defeat your own argument. I can say Hillary Clinton, and that defeats your own argument.
Yeah, but also, if the person choosing is sexist, right? And they happen to choose men consistently in power, right? Then you would say that that's misogynistic. That is a patriarchy, right? And I would agree. I would think it's a systemic patriarchy. And listen, I can point you to very clear evidence that shows
who got more total votes.
1 second, I can point you to very clear evidence that shows that America, right, as a whole, has a huge bias against women as leaders.
No, because who got more total votes?
Here's the thing,
but let me ask a question.
1 second. The point's pretty cogent.
You go on these long monologues.
I do, because it's my life. If you don't like it, you can leave. I really don't give a shit. I let you talk, right? And I give you a time to speak what you want. I don't interrupt you that much. I want to get a point out just like you do, because they're complex discussions, they're complex applications when we're trying to be very specific in how we say things, right? So I'm trying to be very specific in how I say things, which is, from my view, right, it doesn't change whether it's 20 people or if it's 1 person, right? If they're all sexist or if it's most of them are sexist, right, and they're voting and they're choosing the person, it's still a patriarchy if they choose mostly men, right? Because it's clearly sexism that caused